The Founding Fathers once told us that the cornerstones of American prosperity relied upon the tenets of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, for the modern 21st century American, we understand that getting these can be difficult because the definition of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is based on one's objective or abject truth. And because of that, not everybody has the same privileges, access, or barriers to get such tenets. Therefore, the disparity between who can enjoy such life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness has become evident, especially in today's stratifying times. Therefore, we look to our leaders, our world politicians, and elected officials to help us out of such trying times to where we can all enjoy the lives full of economic prosperity, peace, and happiness that we're all indebted. Therefore, Joe Biden has tried to enable a method by which we can get one step closer to enjoying such life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness through his student debt forgiveness program, which he has been trying to implement for the past 2 years. Therefore, when we're posed with today's question as to whether or not Joe Biden's new student debt loan forgiveness is going to be a good path for Americans, we have to say undeniably yes, because of how it affects the people. And to justify this, we're going to be looking in 3 key areas of analysis. Number 1, by looking at how the student debt forgiveness affects the different minority makeups of people. Number 2, looking specifically at the economic barriers that we have in place today, more specifically, the breakdown numerically of who gets this money and how it works economically. And number 3, by finally taking a look at the educational stratification that we see in the status quo today. So, number 1, starting off with why we believe that Joe Biden's new student debt forgiveness is going to be positive, we have to understand, number 1, the baseline for what the student loan forgiveness program is going to entail before we can see how it plays out in the lives of everyday Americans. To which now we have to go to a post done by the New York Times, who stated back December 24th of 2022, right before the new year, that within Joe Biden's new student debt forgiveness program, he planned to try to forgive at least $1,200, or $12,000, my apologies, up to $12,000 for each person living in a lower to middle class background or community. With this, the breakup was going to be higher or lower depending on FAFSA and federal results for financial aid and merit-basedness. Therefore, for anybody to get such money, all they had to do was qualify having a certain level of needs-based qualifications. Therefore, they can be entitled to a cut of Joe Biden's money. However, understanding that this amount of money could be beneficial to some and to others not so, we have to see exactly how it affects the racial minorities. So, first of all, when we look at the educational disparity, Statistica told us that when it comes to those who have the highest level of debt within student loans, those typically fall on our minority communities, specifically Black and brown bodies, Latinx communities, and African Americans. However, these are higher within those who are native-born Americans versus those that come internationally. And Joe Biden's plan has not specified whether or not the money can be allocated specifically to native-born only or to international students, which creates a divide as to how this money is going to be ethically and equitably distributed. However, knowing this, we also have to look at the fact that historically there has been precedent set for trying to equalize the racial gap between education for those in the status quo, because generationally speaking, seeing that our Black and brown students have had a higher level of inequality to fight historically for the past 200 years in America, Joe Biden himself has stated just last month earlier that he tries to bring all of these factors into account to create an equitable plan for everybody to enjoy the student loan forgiveness to the best. So, knowing that the educational divide has been hardest, especially when it comes to the debt on our Black, brown, Latinx, and African American communities, we have to go to our second point of analysis, which talks about how, yes, the student loan forgiveness program would be good because of the current situation with debt. When we look at the people going to college within this day and age, it's going to be what we call Gen Z and millennials predominantly, making up over 70% of college goers in the status quo, according to studies done by the Washington Post as well as Pew Research back in 2022, back in September. So knowing this, we have to see that These two groups of people happen to be the lowest in the earning range potential for the everyday working American. They make up very little money, having a very high tax bracket because they are the healthiest in terms of virility and physical condition in the United States. However, they are also highest in the number of debt. So, knowing that they have the largest amounts of debt, we see that this student debt forgiveness program would be most beneficial for these groups of people. And also, knowing that the majority of millennials and Gen Zers are not homeowners, we also have to look into the fact that most of them would qualify for the lower class and middle class requirements to get at least $12,000. However, although it is not quite clear how this would affect families with more or less children and the time, we have seen that over the past 2 years, there has been a total of $2,000 more allocated from Joe Biden's plan with the COVID-19 pandemic affecting families so negatively. So, moving on to our last point of analysis, we have to talk about the educational gap in the status quo today. It's been said by the New York Times, as well as research done by Forbes back in February 17th of 2022, that COVID-19, as we all know, has racked America with educational disparities. And as early as the World War II time period, in which people were being drafted off to wars and not returning back, causing an even larger educational gap, Americans have been trying to supplement their youth with educational means. Encouraging our students to get back into the workforce and through this get an education has been of utmost priority for our president today, which is why seeing that we have seen very slow growth back into the educational field for many students under the age of 25, this program is needed not only to maintain the educational posterity of American citizens, but also keep our healthy working force active and growing. So, conclusively, we have seen in 3 areas of analysis today that Joe Biden's plan would do nothing but good for the people, and because of this, we say yes, Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness program would be a good deal for Americans. Thank you.